Today, we're going to talk about bank failures and how that can bring opportunity to you as a real estate investor. All right, guys, in the last 2 months, we have seen 3 bank failures. They've been pretty substantial. So in May, we are seeing First Republic Bank that is going through failure. We're seeing in March, we saw Signature Bank, and we also saw Silicon Valley Bank, which was a really big one. One of the things you might not realize is how many banks actually fail. So since 2000, in the last 23 years, there's been 566 banks that have actually failed. Something that's really interesting that you should be aware of here is Silicon Bank and First Republic Bank, both of which failed this year, are in the top 3 biggest failures of banks of all time. The one that is bigger than that one is Washington Mutual. And as a matter of fact, I had loans with Washington Mutual. I dealt with Washington Mutual before their failure and had to deal with them a little bit after their failure as well. So Washington Mutual Bank had $307 billion and adjusted for inflation to be like $386 billion. First Republic Bank, which just recently failed, had $229 billion, and Silicon Bank had $209 billion. The next closest failure was Signature Bank, which happened this year as well at $118 billion. So in 2023, of the top 5, or if you want to say the top 4 biggest failures of all times for banks, we have 3 of them that are happening this year in the top 3. And as we talk about this creates some opportunity for real estate investors. So let's talk about how that can be the case. Okay, so the question you may ask yourself is what happens to these banks that actually fail? Well, these banks are typically insured by the FDIC, which is really just a nice way of saying the government is backing them up. So what happens here is when a bank like this fails, they actually have deposits, money that's actually there. So for example, Silicon Bank had $175 billion of deposits, and the approximate assets that it had was $209 billion, okay? So there's some assets there. What happens is the FDIC is gonna step in. Sometimes they help, or it goes into a receivership, where in this instant with Silicon Bank, it was a receivership, and First Citizens Bank and Trust Company of Raleigh, North Carolina is taking over. If you look at another one like First Republic Bank that just failed just recently, JP Morgan Chase, National Association, to assume the deposits and substantially all the assets of First Republic Bank, okay? Then also, if you look at Signature Bank, let's see here, they were Flagstar Bank, portfolios with Flagstar Bank is what it looks like who took those guys over. So, but here's the question, right? So bank fails, another bank takes it over. What happens? Well, that bank is trying to liquidate assets, get rid of things, and do as much as they can to get the balance sheet up, meaning get rid of liabilities and get rid of things that aren't producing assets, producing value for them, or producing cash for them. So if you just got handed $209 billion worth of assets, what's one of the ways that you would dispose of some of those assets if you were the new bank, the First Citizens Bank, that's trying to get this all wrapped up and taken care of? Well, one thing that you can do is you can sell some real estate, okay? What most people don't realize is the FDIC insures the individual depositors, and as a matter of fact, with Silicon Bank, they insured everybody, even if it was over the $250,000 threshold, which is really interesting. In addition to that, though, what happens is the FDIC goes to the acquiring bank and says, hey, we're going to give you all this stuff, and as you take losses on these things, we will backfill, or we will pay for those losses. So they're basically saying, we'll give you a discount on this, and then you end up having to, if you take some losses, we'll basically insure you, or to put up some of that cash if there happens to be a loss. Now, what are the exact details? I don't really know. That's not the point of this discussion, nor something you really need to figure out. out, other than the FDIC is going to be helping out these banks, the takeover banks that have just failed, and they're going to do that financially. That's the first thing you need to know. The second thing that you need to know is these banks are very motivated to dispose of these properties. I mean, I saw this with Washington Mutual when I went through that in 2008 and saw what they were doing. So I'm going to give you a little secret. One of the ways in finding properties is to go to these banks that have taken over the failed banks, but you first find out what properties they have in areas you'd be interested in. So when you go to First Citizens Bank and Trust Company of Raleigh, North Carolina, you can say, hey, here are some properties that I am thinking about that I'd be interested in buying and taking off your hands. And they're pretty motivated to sell those or get rid of them because they don't have a lot to lose. The FDIC is going to be making that right with them. So they're saying, let's just get off the books. Let's sell, sell, sell. So the way we're going to do this is jumping into Investor's Edge. Now, I will tell you, this does take a little bit of work. This isn't like super, super easy, but how else are you going to find these amazing properties? So it does take some work. Go in knowing that. Okay, what you're going to do is come here. I'm just going to select New Orleans on random, and I am going to be looking for properties that are bank-owned properties, which I've got a preset for our members right there. So those are bank-owned properties. Now, I like to come in and say, I don't want stuff that's over $500,000, or I'd like to come in and say, I don't want commercial property, or, those types of things. But for this purposes, we are just going to use all of them. But depending upon what type of properties you're going after are all things to look at. Now, we're going to click on those and we're going to click add to list. We're going to create list and we're going to say New Orleans. These are bank-owned properties. Now, before we do that, what I want to do is actually save this search, because when this search gets saved, it will actually notify me. So these are bank-owned homes. Let's see, save search. New Orleans bank owned. Okay, there we go. And so what I actually want to do is anytime that a property meets this criteria, I want to get emailed. I can do that immediately, daily, or weekly, which basically means if any property becomes a bank-owned property, I'm going to get notified of that property immediately so I can know. The other thing I can do is I can put it up here on one of these and get rid of one of my other tiles. So for example, if I have an include in the home screen, and I can come down here. I don't really want to replace one of my tiles, but what the heck? We're going to do this just as a demo so you can see. So, and you'll be able to see the new ones that are coming up with that New Orleans. They're meeting those criteria. Okay, so that's the first thing. Next thing that we're going to be doing is coming over to my properties, and we're going to look for those New Orleans. Okay, so here's the New Orleans, and we know that these are bank-owned properties. So I can come over here and I can look and say, ooh, these are all bank-owned properties. Now, what I'm looking for, again, is to find out of these failed banks, I want to see if any of these banks have properties in New Orleans where they are actually bank-owned now, which means the bank has taken it back. Now, that's going to be constantly changing, and we may or may not find some here. So let's see here, signature. Doesn't look like that. We'll do a search by alphabet as well. First Republic is what we're looking for. First Horizon, FDIC, First Rate, First Bank, First National, the First Bank. I think we're looking for First Republic. So I don't see any there as of yet. But this is, again, this is constantly changing. This is fresh, and it's going to be Silicon Bank. I don't see any that are Silicon Bank there. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back and I am going to do a search for the next area. Once I've saved it, it's going to notify me every single time one comes in, and it's going to notify me who that owner is of that property because it's now bank owned. And then what I'm going to have to do is then do another place in New Orleans or wherever else I want to invest. Let's just say Oklahoma City, for example. Oklahoma City, I'm going to come here. I'm going to just look at bank owned homes. Let's close that. If you want to know how to know who the owner is right here. First Bank and Trust, really easy to find. If you want to know the information for them, this is their information. So Freeman Team Investments, so that's more of a probably an investment company than it is an actual bank. But let's just jump back to this one that had First Bank. I wish that was First Republic Bank. This is their PO box, right? This is where they're at. And so that's a way that we can actually start getting in touch with these banks once we know who we want to be going after, specifically these banks like Signature, First Republic, and Silicon Bank. Okay, so I'm creating the list. Did we do Oklahoma City on this? We'll take a look at these ones. You're gonna have to go through all of these and set up your auto alerts. This is going to take some time. And let's add this to a list. We're gonna create a new list, and this one is Oklahoma, where the wind goes sweeping through the whatever. Okay, Oklahoma. Man, that gives me time. Going back to my properties, I'm going to come down to my Oklahoma, and I am going to come down to who owns this property. Oh, you know what? We didn't check last names. That might be worth taking a look at. But okay, let's just do a quick search here. Okay, so the other thing we can do, I didn't do this on the last one, rather than just typing it in here, we can scroll down. So let's just say we want to look at stuff for here's all our first. There's lots of first. First Bank, we're looking for First Republic, First Bank, First Bank, First Bank, First National, Bank of America, First State Bank, First United, First Mortgage. It looks like we don't have a First Republic in this small list, right? We want to do this for every county that is inside the city or the area that we're looking to invest. And we want to put those auto alerts on, so as those change, we will know and we'll get alerted with an email, and we can say, hey, which bank is this? Okay, so that's Signature. We looked at First. Let's go to Signature. You see Midwest. Whoops. Doesn't look like we've got any Signature, and it looks like we don't really have any Silicon Bank either. Okay, so we're on the early thresholds of this. So what you're going to want to do here is decide the different counties that you're going to want to be investing in. With those, you are then going to create a search, and you're going to save that search and get notified immediately as new properties meet that criteria, specifically the ones from these three banks of Signature, First Republic, and Silicon Valley Bank. Now, you're going to see more and more of those become available because this just happened just in the last few weeks, and then you can be looking for those. Then you'll put the auto alert on so that you'll know every single time a bank-owned property becomes a bank-owned property. Doesn't necessarily mean it's on the multiple listing service. There's a couple ways to do this. You can actually see which ones are bank-owned properties that are listed on the MLS if you want to go use an agent to buy those. So you can negotiate through the agent, or you can go directly to the bank. Now, once we find some of those that are Silicon Bank or whatever, the Silicon Bank, First Republic, the next thing that we want to do is we want to go to the bank who has taken them over. For example, Flagstar Bank, and we're talking about First Citizens Bank and Trust, who took these over. It's kind of funny that First Citizens didn't take over First Republic, but that's just how it goes. And then what we're doing is getting in contact with that bank and saying, hey, this is a distressed asset. I know you want to get rid of it, and we would love to buy this property from you. And since they're getting compensated through the FDIC, they're probably less concerned about squeezing every penny out of it because they're trying to unload a bunch of non-performing assets, because this is something that's not making them money. That's the definition of non-performing asset, is it's not making them any money. Now, it's really important that we talk about the rest of these bank-owned properties. We pulled up hundreds of bank-owned properties. Are these things that you should just turn a blind eye on? No, I don't think so. At a minimum, you can find out these bank-owned properties that are listed on the multiple listing service and work with your agent to go ahead and make offers on all those, knowing that they are bank-owned homes. However, the secret sauce is to find bank-owned homes that are by these banks that just defaulted, and then working with the new acquiring bank as they become available, which we're going to see more and more of those as time goes on. It's a fantastic strategy. Let me show you one more thing with these. Let me go back to my search. The other thing you can look at is bank-owned homes that are actually listed on the MLS. This is going to blow you away. There's 262 bank-owned homes. Okay, 6 are listed on the MLS. 6 are listed on the MLS. And if you say not listed on the MLS, 256. Okay. So there's a lot of properties that banks actually own that are not on the multiple listing services. And those are the ones we're wanting to go after. Now, how do we know who that is? Well, Federal Home Loan Bank, and this is their mailing address. And then we have to be MacGyver, investigator, whatever his name is, and we want to know First Home Loan Bank. So we're looking for their default department. We're looking for their servicing department. Those are the types of things, and you're going to make a bunch of phone calls, send a bunch of letters to find out who the person is at Federal Home Bank that is in charge of liquidating this asset. One of the cool things is once you go to the work to make that relationship, which it is going to take a lot of work, you can typically work with them time and time again. Hey, anytime you have properties that meet this criteria, give me a call. I'll unload it for you. I'll buy it, make it really easy for you. So this is a strategy that takes a lot of work and a lot of effort, but can pay huge dividends as time actually goes on. Now, why weren't we able to see Signature or First Republic or Silicon Bank on these? For a few reasons. One, we did some small searches. A couple hundred is what we were looking at. One. Number two, it's really early for this to be happening. We're going to be seeing more of those come on, which is why you want to turn on those signatures or those autoresponders to remind you that those are coming on the market. So if you want to see the opportunity that is here from these banks that are going through hardships and going through failure, this is the way to do it. Make it a very profitable day, and we'll see you next time.